At some point, you may have taken a walk in a park near your home. Maybe you visited a beach or hiked in a forest. While visiting these places, you probably saw plants, fungi, and maybe even some animals. How do we describe these places and the living things in them? How do these living things interact with each other? And why is this important? During the next few minutes, we're going to explore these questions and others as we investigate ecosystems and food webs. This pond, this field, and this forest all have something in common. They're all ecosystems. What exactly is an ecosystem? An ecosystem consists of all the living and non-living things in a specific area. The boundaries of an ecosystem are rather arbitrary. For example, an ecosystem can be as small as this pond, or it can be as large as this huge ecosystem, sometimes referred to as the Yellowstone ecosystem. As we mentioned, ecosystems contain non-living things. These include non-living things such as rocks, water, sunlight, and wind, to name just a few. You decide. What are a couple of the living things shown here? That's right. The living things include grasses and a bison. It's important to realize that non-living and living things continually interact with each other in an ecosystem. For example, living things breathe in air, drink water, and eat other living things. If you ate an apple, a salad, or even a cookie, you ate plants or things made from plants. Plants give us energy we need to live. You decide. Where do plants get their energy? Plants get the energy they need by making it from the sun's light energy. This process is called photosynthesis. In photosynthesis, plants produce energy from the light of the sun while taking in carbon dioxide and water. Plants are generally referred to as producers. They produce their own energy. Animals that eat other things for energy are called consumers. For example, this donkey eating grass is a consumer. Consumers need to consume plants or animals for their energy. The third group of organisms in ecosystems are decomposers. Examples of decomposers include fungi, mushrooms, and microscopic bacteria. Decomposers perform the very important job of breaking down once living things into simpler substances. For example, this fungi is decomposing this dead tree. Eventually, decomposers will break down all of the tree. In this process, valuable nutrients are returned to the soil. You decide. What do this huge truck and these small insects have in common? They're both made of matter. As you know, matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. All the things you see in this ecosystem are made of matter. Whenever an organism eats something, it takes in matter. These animals in this mountain meadow are eating matter in the form of plants. And this squirrel is eating matter in a nut. When animals release waste, some of the matter is returned to the environment. And when a living thing dies, the particles in it return to the environment. So, as you can see, matter is continually transferred in an ecosystem. Energy also moves in ecosystems. When we eat something, our bodies use chemical compounds in food to give us energy. Other animals do the same thing. As you recall, plants create their own energy via the process of photosynthesis. Energy flows from plants to consumers that eat plants. Energy also flows to animals that eat other animals for food. So, as you can see, energy flows through an ecosystem. There are many different kinds of plants in this meadow. Grass is a common plant in this meadow. There are also many insects in the meadow. Crickets are one example. Some eat grass. In turn, birds eat crickets. Birds are sometimes consumed by foxes. And when a fox dies, its body is broken down by decomposers. These relationships can be explained by a simple illustration called a food chain. In this food chain, grass is a producer making food from the sun's light energy. Crickets consume the grass, and sparrows eat crickets. The fox eats sparrows, and when the fox dies, it's broken down by decomposers. A food chain represents events in which food and energy are transferred from one organism in an ecosystem to another. We just took a look at food chains. In real life, it's not as common for an organism to feed on just one type of organism. More often, a living thing eats several different kinds of things. For example, coyotes eat many different things, such as mice, chipmunks, and rabbits. In turn, an organism such as a squirrel could be eaten by many types of living things, such as a hawk, coyote, or snake. These more realistic, complex relationships are better represented by a food web. A food web illustrates some of the many possible relationships between living things in an ecosystem. Arrows indicate the flow of energy between organisms. Notice how the lines frequently cross, forming a web. This food web of a forest ecosystem is a rather simplistic representation of just a small number of living things. During the past few minutes, we explored many of the fascinating characteristics of ecosystems. We began by learning that an ecosystem consists of the living and non-living things in a specific place. And we looked at examples of both living and non-living things in some different ecosystems. Next, we took a look at some of the different groups of living things, including producers, consumers, and decomposers. We then learned how everything in ecosystems is made of matter. And we observed that matter is taken in when one organism eats another organism. We then explored the process by which energy flows through ecosystems. Food chains are illustrations that depict simple feeding relationships. And the arrows in a food chain illustrate the flow of energy between living things. Last, we took a look at food webs, which more accurately represent complex relationships between living things in an ecosystem. So, the next time you see a deer eating grass, or a squirrel eating something in a park, think about some of the things we discussed during the past few minutes. You just might think about ecosystems, food chains, and food webs a little differently. Fill in the correct word to complete the sentence. Good luck, and let's get started. Number 1. An consists of the living and non-living things in a specific place. Number 2. Plants are referred to as Number 3. A must eat other living things. Number 4. Food chains end with And number 5. This is a diagram of a food